Let's talk about Ultimatum Queer Love. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's podcast. My name is Brittany Simon. In today's podcast, we're reviewing the show on Netflix, Ultimatum Queer Love. They had done a heterosexual ultimatum last year, 2 years ago. I don't remember. I watched it. I thought it was an interesting concept, but this season was about queer love. So it's basically all women or theys and thems. And I want to go ahead and explore those couples, but I want to have a thing in mind while we're discussing it. So just like I did with Love is Blind a few podcasts ago when I asked about deserving love, in this context, we're going to talk about types of people who love types of ways. So which category of love or person are you, and how do you express that to your partner? How do you get your needs met? I've got the cast to my right here, and I'm going to go ahead and review them with you today. Disclaimer, these are real people. So of course, I'm not talking about the literal human that is them, the consciousness that is them. I'm more or less talking about the type of person they represent. As an online person myself, I know it's hard to have people dissect your life and your character when they don't really know you. But the good news is that I'm also a tool, as much as these people are, for helping you understand who you are in the world. So let's go ahead and review these characters. I know that's a bad word to use, but it's sort of like the character that is their trope. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really trying to demoralize the person that they are, but let's go ahead and review the versions of themselves they put out on the internet, and let's see what we can learn from them. Oh, and disclaimer before I forget, I know I normally have a drink for these podcasts, but I'm in a setup that is temporary and it's not spill proof, and I feel like if I spill my tea, because I am very klutzy, I'm going to end up ruining all of my computer systems or whatever, so I just don't want to take the risks, but I will bring teas back. I've been enjoying these amazing teas while I've been here, these really great flavors, and I can't wait to share them with you guys in the future. Okay, so moving in. I've got these 5 couples. I obviously have favorites. I have people that I liked more, people I identified with. Just looking at their pictures right now in front of me, I can tell you right now that I identified pretty heavily with a version of Lexi. Determined, focused, knows what she wants, knows her values. But she's young. And I remember being sort of that young but self-aware and self-confident person. And I think Lexi is going to continue to grow into a very self-reassured person. Her self-assured person. The thing about Lexi, though, is that because of her age, she's going to have to learn the hard way by dating people like Ray in order to become the person she's really meant to be. In life, I think we have versions of ourselves that we are, and then in life, I think we have final forms. So me being in 34, I really do think this is probably the final form of Brittany. That doesn't mean I won't change or grow as I age. It means that the personality that is most dominant in me is probably this one. It's not the inner goth in me. It's not the BDSM dominatrix. It's not the X, Y, and Z. It's this person, and this person is very specific, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Do I have those things in my closet so I could dress up and be that version of myself when I feel like it? Yes. But in life, there is, I think, a dominant person in us that shows most of the time. And most of the time, it's going to be a specific version. Okay, so I think Lexi is going to continue to grow into that version. She was paired up with Ray. So if we scroll down, I'm using this article as kind of a prompt for us to kind of have this conversation. Ray and Lexi are the first featured couple on this, so that's why we're starting with them. Lexi was 25 at the time, and Ray was 27. This alone is very interesting to me because Lexi, being the younger person but more self-assured, is the person giving the ultimatum to Ray, and Ray is receiving that ultimatum. In the story, Lexi is obviously a person who loves like a bulldozer. She just comes in, kicks down the door, declares her love, and wants you to reciprocate. Ray, on the other hand, was really hard to figure out, I think, for a lot of us, including the people on the show, where Ray, and I don't mean to say this as a reflection of the consciousness that is Ray, but just as the observation of character she portrayed on the show, is sort of a empty vessel, a sort of plain canvas, and she allows the people around her to tell her who she is.
I have feelings. I do. I want to talk to you.
I do too. Let's go. Come on. Talk to me.
Coming into this, I think we both talked very openly about like if you did have like an attraction to someone.
So you have that.
I do have that. I think I have a physical attraction to Vanessa.
Right.
Like 3 weeks would be fun.
I'm a little stressed about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vanessa is like a song and dance in this experience. I'm also strongly concerned about like motives for being here.
But throughout this show, we actually saw Ray sort of shift, grow slightly, hopefully, and sort of ask herself, well, who am I? Does she need this show to do that? Well, apparently, this show is a tool for them as much as it is for us. When I watch trash TV, and that's what I'm categorizing this show as, I'm seeing a bunch of people willing to put their most intimate moments out for the public to see and view, and that frankly gives me a lot of anxiety. As a YouTuber myself who shares a lot of my personal life, I still have a line I never cross because I am somewhat of a private person. Now, I think the people on the show also have that in variation. Not everybody was as forthcoming. Ray in particular, I think, had a really hard time even explaining who she felt like she was, and I think the show helped push her closer to that future person she will be. Obviously, Ray's also not in her final form. Now, the age difference, I think, is a reflection of how just a couple years can make a difference, but even more than that, personalities. Look at Lexi being younger, but more self-assured. Ray being older, less so. It is very interesting. So when you're observing yourself and you're thinking, what kind of a lover am I? How do I receive love? It always comes down to also, who am I as a person, as a consciousness? Throughout this show, the women showed over and over again that they were very well in tune with therapeutic terms. They were up to date with communication styles. They sort of wanted to give space to each other, but they were lacking in other areas. Remember, when I talk about being a whole human being, I think there's 5 things you need. One of them is therapy, mental health, of course. But the other one is philosophy, sense of self. Who am I? What am I doing here on this planet? I think a lot of the women here had access to therapy, but not a lot of them had access to knowing how to ask themselves, who am I? In a very philosophy way. Not just in that superficial, like, who am I? But in the, oh no, wait a second. Who am I? Like, this is a very specific question to ask yourself. The tone is slightly different, the nuance is there, but it's very hard to see for people who might not have the tool of philosophy. They might only have the tool of Instagram categorization, taking a Disney quiz, taking a BuzzFeed quiz, and trying to figure out which princess am I. That's some variation of finding out who you are, but I think it goes deeper, and the more you ask yourself those questions, the more unsure you can become, and the more unnerved you can become. You can shatter your foundation and have to start again, which is so scary, especially for people who are older, which we'll get to Aussie in a moment, but great example of somebody who's older in age and still has to start from the beginning in a lot of ways. So let's move on to Mal and Yoli. Mal and Yoli were complicated. When I was first watching the show, I really liked Yoli. I thought she was really confident in who she was. She had a very strong sense of self. She didn't make me think she was anyone untrustworthy. Then come the reunion and you start to feel a way about Yoli, but I'm moving ahead of myself. So Mal is on the other side, somebody who actually does have a really strong sense of self, but has a specific kind of doubt in her energy. Her energy is very, very specific. It's, I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm at, but I'm unsure of the people around me, which makes me unsure of myself. In the conversations between Yoli and Mal,
what's holding you back?
I mean, I knew her as a friend before I knew her as a lover. Every time she's talked about another lover, it's been very similar. And you've talked about your lovers so great, same tenacity, same like boisterous way. So I'm just like, why me? I want to figure that out. Yoli falls in love with wherever she's watering the grass at. And that is scary. 8 weeks from now, however many weeks from now, you could come back and be like, actually, Mal, I know I told you you need to marry me. And then be like, I actually don't know. I'm actually in love with this other person. I really don't know now. I do want marriage, but I just want her to be really sure about me.
Sorry you feel that way. I feel like I found my person. I want you to feel confident in me and in us. And it takes a lot for you to feel confident in us.
True.
I don't think it's possible for me to find another better person. I mean, Mal, I don't think we're gonna break up. I do think that we'll choose each other. I don't miss you.
I think I've lost my mind.
I love you.
Yeah, you mess my head up.
Like, I feel what you guys are feeling right now.
Can I step in? Do you want me to not step in?
You can do whatever you want.
What do you want?
If you just stick to the
I don't know. It's very intimate.
I like how you want kids and how you text me about.
I honestly kind of want to go back and like join that conversation because it was a conversation that was Mildred was speaking up about something so important to her that relates to me, that relates to Xander, and I kind of want to go back to that, to be super honest, but I don't want you to feel Like, I'm not thinking of you. I am.
Is it a conversation that I can join or that you don't want me to join?
I think it would be more authentic without you there. I just want to. There's just some questions I have not had answered. So I just want, like, maybe, like, 5-10 minutes, if that's okay. It's not long.
Is it a trust thing? You need me to trust you in this?
Please? Yes.
Okay. Okay. Go for it.
Thank you.
This shit is not easy. I need you to know.
No, it's not.
It's not.
I'm not okay either.
It's like not. Listen. Wake up.
Mal in particular says to Yoli, and this is so important for somebody like myself, do you love me for me, the consciousness that I am, or do you just like me because I'm here and available? Yoli never gave me that impression until I saw the reunion, but I really started to realize, wait a second, Mal has been screaming at the screen the whole time, I want to be loved for me. And that is something I relate to. I want to be loved for Britney, the consciousness that is me. I don't want to be loved because I've got a nice body or because I'm a YouTuber or because I'm somebody who brings in money. I don't want to be loved because of X, Y, and Z. Like the things that are sort of superficial to me. I want to know that someone's going to love me if all of those things disappear. Now, that's not to say, because this can be a red flag, it's not to say I want to be loved if I give up on life and I become a useless burden on the people around me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want to be loved through World War III. I want to be loved through a famine. I want to be loved through an economic disaster. Watching my parents raise 10 kids, watching them stay together through the ups and downs of running their business as immigrants, watching my parents stay together when the world was against them, watching my parents figure it out and be married 30 years plus with 10 kids makes me want that. And you can't have that with somebody who's only with you while things are good. Okay, hold on. This is making me think of Mildred and Tiff. Ooh, that's a different kind of conversation. Okay, put that in your little noggins. Mildred and Tiff are great examples of people who toxically want you to stay with them no matter how bad it gets. Okay, but before we go into that, so Mal and Yoli seem like a really sort of not compatible couple. And I think that's because the philosophy is different. Yoli does seem like the kind of person who might actually only date people while they're available, convenient there. But Mal really knows she's a real consciousness, like a real individual. And I think Mal deserves to be loved in that way. So I'm a big fan of Mal. I think she's one of my favorites. I think she does deserve that kind of love, as well as Lexi. I mean, these are people who do have a sense of self. They're just not sure about the people around them. And that's what's so scary about relying on other people to sort of tell you who you are. For myself, I think a lot of my introspection journey, moving away from wanting to unalive myself, moving away from depression and decades of feeling abandoned because I have borderline, made me realize that the thing that I kept relying on, which was the mistake, was other people to give me my validation. I went to therapy, I sought help, and I realized, like, I'm still waiting for people to love me the way I need to be loved instead of learning to do it myself. And that put me in a position to kind of guide my life in a direction based off of me and my wants. And then it allowed me to be warm and kind and patient and invite the right people into my life. You guys know I like to use a little bit of an analogy. Imagine you're sitting on a train and you're kind of in charge of your own train. Everyone has a different relationship with their train, the train that guides them through life. You can be in the back seat and let someone else drive it. You can be somebody who on occasion walks to the front and sees what's going on, but then takes a back seat in your life. You can be a person that is riding your train and you're watching everyone pass you by and you're just like, oh, hi guys, hello, how are we? You can be the person outside of your train at the train stop watching your whole life pass you by. I was a person who I think just allowed too many people on my train. And then I've kicked everybody off and then was very selective about who could be on it. And then in particular, when it came to choosing a life partner as a bisexual, well, really pansexual queer woman, I ended up with a person whose consciousness, not gender, was the reason I was attracted to him. It's the consciousness that is this person. And I've dated so many people, dated so many genders, met so many humans, and it was clear that they were just not right. It's not that they were wrong or bad or evil or something like that. They just weren't right. And they could have been maybe right. They could have been maybe, I guess wrong is an okay word as well. I said maybe it's not that they're wrong, but it's not that they're bad. It's that they're not right for me, and therefore I'm not right for them, which I think we saw in Love is Blind, where, I can't remember his name right now. I'm blanking on his name. the one guy would say all the time, you know, what's good for me is good for you. It's kind of a way of saying, if you're not my person, then I'm not your person. Even if it's one-sided, even if you feel like, well, you're my person, why aren't you mine? I don't know if that's true. I think in order for that person to be actually your person, you both have to want that relationship. It can't be 1 foot out, 1 foot in. It has to be clear and very almost profound. Unless you want to settle. If you want to settle into a relationship, then I think you could make it work with a lot of people, because a lot of people are good and they're easy to get along with. But if you're not wanting to settle, and I don't think Mel ever wanted to settle, then I think you do have to wait for that exact right person. And I think that person exists in the millions. We're a planet of 8 billion people. I have no doubt that there are millions of people that I'm compatible with. But the person that I've met first, the first person after 33 years of dating that I met and realized, like, oh, there it is. He's the first one I've come across. And we were an ocean away. So for us, it was really awesome that we lived in this time, in this modern era, where we have the internet in order to meet. Otherwise, I never would have met him, and I would have waited for the next person to come along, whichever way that ended up happening. Or maybe it wouldn't have happened, and I would have remained single for my whole life, which in my bubble is totally reasonable, because it's worse to settle than to end up alone and having a more independent life. So again, Mal has every right to want someone who really wants her. And Yoli has a right to want to settle or to have chemistry with somebody else, to want to explore different avenues. I think when we get into a relationship where we're sort of complacent or we're sort of hesitant to be with that person, I think that's sort of a red flag. Maybe a orange flag, but it's something. It's something that should make you go, maybe I should start questioning my presence in this relationship. And I'm also kind of grateful that so many breakups happened during the series, because when it started, Yoli was 34 and Mal was 36. And I think Mal looks so good, by the way. Oh my gosh, she looks so good. But like, Mal deserves to figure out love, and she deserves to see if that's going to happen before 40 or after 40. You know, there's not a wrong time to find love, but I'm kind of glad that a lot of breakups happened so people wouldn't have to drag out more time together. Not that I believe in wasted time. Okay, let's scroll. Perfect. Mildred and Tiff. Okay, I'm Team Tiff. I love Tiff. I've loved Tiff. I did have moments where I really loved Mildred, but I was getting kind of BPD energy from her. And again, I'm not a therapist. I don't, you know what I mean? That's not my genre of expertise. But I do feel like, as a person who's diagnosed with borderline and who's been in remission, she was giving me like borderline vibes. I know Tiff at one point, I think during the reunion, called her a narcissist. Maybe, right? I can't know that. And I can't know that Mildred has borderline, but given that her parents died or abandoned her, given that her life was the way that it was, it does sound like she has the tenets of borderline, and I think DBT could really help. And even if you don't have borderline, DBT is a really great therapy for emotional regulation. So highly, highly recommend. It really, really saved my life, truly. So when I saw Mildred and Tiff, okay, at first it was clear that Tiff has a lot of triggers, a lot of problems.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
On the dog situation that's going on right now?
Yeah.
Well, I slept on the couch with the dog last night, and I feel like I'm compromising by not kind of even putting you in a situation where you have to deal with my dog on the bed. You know, with Mildred, she's always been afraid of dogs her entire life.
Well, and I also think it's different because I'm not Mildred, and I think the line is getting blurred. I've never said, like, no, the dog cannot do this or that. I've never said that.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. I know that you never said that.
Okay, so I'm put in a tough position too, because that's your non-negotiable. But then I also have to take care of myself too and make sure that I'm not just like lying to you and just bottling things up, saying like, oh yeah, let's just do it. And then I'm just like suffering.
I cannot be the person that you want me to be. And I cannot feel bad about that.
I'm asking you to act like you care about my dog. Like, it's not that hard. I want a heart. What the fuck am I gonna do?
Well, what's your perspective?
The stuff that we went through post-show was happening on show. I just feel like we had a overall unhealthy relationship that was trying our best. That's the way I saw it.
So why take the next step if you feel that you had an unhealthy relationship?
Did I feel like we were starting to find ways to communicate where we felt like at one point we we're on the same side, on the same team, and trusted each other, I did.
So what was the turning point? What was the moment it went sideways?
Obviously, as you all know, we had a very tumultuous relationship. It was a roller coaster. There was a lot of ups and downs. You know, it's really hard for me to say it. You know, I was arrested. I threw a picture frame and I broke it, and the glass shattered everywhere. And I threw a peg gate at you, and it was really heavy. At the same time, I was grabbing all of your clothes from the closet and throwing them down the stairs because I really wanted you to leave my home.
So you did throw the dog gate at me? The police statement says that you took it back.
I need to finish, okay? You don't have that power over me anymore.
What?
Yeah, I threw something at you, and you called the police at me, and they arrested me in my home, and they took my engagement ring off, and I never put it back on. I'm not proud of what I did, but there was a lot of fighting.
So the thing is, when you're talking about how do I love, what kind of love do I need? You need to love in the way that brings out your best, most optimistic, joyful self. In the show, when we weren't sure if Tiff and Mildred were going to be together, there's a point where Tiff proposes, which I understand Tiff was given the ultimatum, but man, I wish Tiff had chosen herself even then, but that's okay. Tiff and Mildred start bickering, fighting, like bicker fighting. Now listen, there's a toxic and healthy side to every dynamic. There are those couples that fight and it's like healthy and cute. And then there are the couples that fight and it's like toxic. And I turned to my partner because he was watching it with me and I said, man, even when they're proposing, they're fighting. And it was in a very toxic-y energy way. And that's the thing that I think needs to stand out to us when we're dating. Does this person bring out my most optimistic, positive self, or do they drag me down? Something that I thought was really cool is Sam's strength through the series and her self-reassuredness allowed other people to move off of her, which is also to her detriment. Her own journey, we'll get into that when we get to her and Ozzy. But obviously, Sam was really positive for Tiff. And Tiff, I think, after a few triggers and after, really going through it, was made to bring out her most optimistic and kind side because she had an energy around her that allowed space for it. And I think that's what's so powerful and interesting about shows like this is, again, it's just a tool for us to learn more about ourselves. So Tiff, I'm very much Team Tiff, I hope realizes that there's so much more to her when given the opportunity. And Mildred, I hope Mildred realizes she has the potential to be so much more if she would work on that emotional regulation and, frankly, her ego. I think she probably needs that ego to protect herself and her son, who I think she said in the show had disabilities. I'm not sure which kind, but it sounds like she's got dealt a really crappy hand, and then she uses a lot of cope to kind of manage, and I think that makes sense when you're raised in a very toxic environment and you don't have a lot of tools. So I just want to be very open to Mildred getting better, but as of right now, obviously, I think it's very inappropriate for Mildred and Tiff to be around each other, especially given the domestic violence problems, right? Obviously, that's not something that I think is great. And I think if you get to the point in your relationship where the cops are called, something has gone severely wrong. And please note, I strongly do believe, much like Lexi, that the person you choose is also a reflection of yourself. And I think that as long as Tiff chooses Mildred's, it means Tiff is still in a cycle of cope as well and toxicity. As long as, Lexi's choosing Ray's, Lexi's also giving off the image that she wants partners who are doormats. So I think we need to be very aware that the people we choose are a reflection of also what we think is good in a relationship, right? Okay, so let's keep going. Ooh, Vanessa and Xander. Okay, Vanessa and Xander, very complicated couple, but also very simple in a lot of ways. Xander is this person, let me scroll up here. Xander is this person who obviously is well-meaning, but a total romantic. And that romantic in her sort of died in the series, which I think it should have. It transformed into a different kind of romantic, a romantic of passion with Yoli, which is not my favorite, but also is a very important tool when learning how to love.
I love the way that you make me feel. I feel like that we have this crazy, stupid love for each other, and I love it. And it makes me feel incredible. And I would really regret leaving here in this experience if I didn't make you confident about how much I love you.